are numerical data points that when you divide them, the answer you get makes physical sense. So year of birth is not ratio, because dividing 2 years of birth would not make sense. Could there be a historical figure that was born in the year 0?
Jesus?
Well, yes, please say yes. When they were born, was it considered the year 0? No, I don't know if that's part of your problem. I'm talking about right now, looking back, the way that we have years set up now. Was somebody born in the year 0? Yes, I love it. I don't know if did that really freak you out? Sound like a new movie I could make? The year 0. I know they were made year 1, didn't they? So, year of birth is not ratio, because when you divide them, the answer doesn't make sense, because the 0 doesn't mean what 0 is supposed to mean. What is 0 supposed to mean? The absence of that thing. Right? So if the year 0 happened, does that mean there was no anything happening before that? That was when time was first created. That was when the Big Bang happened. No, stuff happened before that. In fact, that's what we call now BC, right? Dinosaurs and all that shit had to have their time, right? So interval is when subtraction of 2 data points makes physical sense. Can you subtract 2 zip codes? Yes, you can, right? Does the answer mean anything? No, it doesn't. So that's why that's not here. So interval, subtraction makes sense. Ratio, division makes sense. And really, division makes sense because 0 means what it's supposed to mean. And just be really clear, if I said a company's profits, the amount of money a company made exceeding its cost, would that be interval or ratio? Hopefully y'all agree that it's numerical data, right? Company's profits, would that be interval or ratio data?
It could be ratio. Because they could be making nothing.
Now be careful, it doesn't mean that 0 has to be able to happen. 0 just has to mean what it's supposed to be. So if I said I went fishing, I caught a fish of length 0 inches. What's that a way of saying I didn't catch any freaking fish? So I didn't catch a fish that had a 0 length. So the 0 could not happen when it's describing fish. But the 0 length would actually mean absence of fish. You with me? I don't know if that makes sense. 0 doesn't have to happen in order for it to be ratio. It just has to mean what it should mean. Like absence of 0 cannot happen in the middle of this classroom out of nowhere. Right? Maybe, but no, it shouldn't be. But 0 would mean the absence of energy. So then that's why it's a ratio. So profit, 0. Yeah, it can be 0. What throws people off is it can be negative too.
Because, oh yeah.
But what does 0 profit mean? Absence of profit. If I made $400,000 last year as a company, and then the next year we make $800,000, $800,000 divided by $400,000 is 2. And what does that mean physically? We made twice as much that year than we did the year before. Are you guys with me? So division makes sense. I love it. So profit, company profit would be ratio. Now, it's all of these. So your answer is always the highest level. Can you subtract profits? Of course. But don't just stop and say, well, then it's interval. Because you can do more with it. So really, anything you say is ratio, you could have said any of these, but it would be wrong because you always give the highest level. Because then that assumes that all the other levels are there too. Sort of like a black belt karate, I wouldn't expect them to not have a clue how to do certain white belt things. Are you with me? Yeah. Well, it's a black belt. Why would you have it? No, it's levels, right? I like it, I like it, I like it. Yes?
I have a question. How would it be ordinal? Like, how would you describe that?
Oh, so for example, that one example is the restaurant rating. In fact, ordinal, almost any rating system would be ordinal. So like star rating system?
Right, no, I mean for company profit, since it's ratio.
Oh, well.
How would you describe it to be ordinal? Just curious.
If I put a listing of the top 10 companies and the profits, I sort of would expect it to be from most profit to least, right?
Yeah.
So there is an order that I would expect. Or if it said, or if I was filling out some form and it said a drop-down list, please indicate your profits for last year, and it was $80,072, $147, just random. Like, holy shit, there should be an order to this.
Right. Okay.
I like it.
But couldn't that be ordered yearly? You know what I mean?
Of course, of course. I think your point was, it's not always the clearest thing. If there's a ratio thing, can you look at it? You should be able to look at it as ordinal also, because you assume you kind of inherit all these things.
Right.
Yeah.
Like the Karate Kid.
I love it. But like I just said, there is a way to see it as this. And that drop-down menu idea really works for most things. Like if there's a drop-down menu, fill in this, and it's just random shit. You're like, screw this. I'm not going to do this. All right? Okay. I like it. But these two are name data. These two are numerical data. So what you do normally for a problem is they ask you, identify what level is this data. You go, well, that's numerical data, so it's not one of these. And then you figure out which one of these it is. So for example, what about, let's see, number of doors on a car. Which level would that be? It's obviously not which two. The number of doors on a car.
What kind of car? Is it a coupe? Is it a...
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's obviously not which two of these. It's not one of these two, because number of doors is, as I already said, number. It's a numerical data point, right? And which of those two would it be then? If I had a 4-door and you had a 2-door, it's ratio. So how do you kind of answer that question? Give yourself 2 data points and see if you can divide them and it makes sense. If I had a 4-door car and you had a 2-door car, 4 divided by 2 is 2. I got twice as many doors as you.
Yeah, but he has a 200% evacuation rate out of his car.
Yeah, but why wouldn't it be?
And again, if you had a 3-door, I had a 1-door, 3 minus 1 is 2, it is interval, but it's more than that. You always have to give the highest level it is. Don't just stop because subtraction makes sense. Check to see if division makes sense.
So what example is more interval than ratio? Everything seems ratio.
Oh, all right. Well, the easy one would be the temperature in Fahrenheit. That's interval. The year that a company was founded. Well, that's a year. You can't divide years and have it make sense. That's interval. I like it.
I see what you're saying.
I'm with you. Most measurements will end up being ratio. Because most measurements have 0 as the absence of that. What measurements are interval are weird-ass temperature scales, right? And Fahrenheit is much more weird-ass than Celsius, because Celsius is a 10 degree. What's boiling in Fahrenheit? Do you guys know?
Is it 120?
To boil water.
200.
212. 212. In Celsius, it's 100. What's freezing in Fahrenheit? 32. In Celsius, it's 0. So the Celsius people went, our number system is based on 10. Metric is based on 10 because metric is freaking makes more sense. Do you know that we're the only country on the face of the earth now? The other 2 countries that used to voted not to anymore, and they went to metric. We're the only country on the face of the earth that still doesn't use metric. And some people will go, yes, because we're well. Okay. All right, whatever. All right, sorry. And that's why one of the Mars explorers we sent up, the Mars, I don't remember if it was the climate thing, but one team was using metric and the other team was using feet and inches. So they sent it and it's about to, it just hit Mars. Oh shit, because they had programmed it with the wrong units. Yes, this actually happened. Billions of dollars, smack. Careful your units, kids. All right. Last thing for today, I think. We've done a lot, which is kind of nice. Blah, blah, blah. Let me make sure where I am. Sweet. Oh, good. This last thing. So we talked about the words associated with just conducting a statistical experiment. Population, sample, all that kind of stuff. We then broke down some of the data. We broke it down into types of data because what we can do with it depends on the type of data it is. Okay. Now we're about to get into stepping back one further. We're going to look at samples and talk more about that whole idea of, well, this was a bad sample if I use you guys to represent gross margin. Not because you're bad people, but just because of all the inherent problems you talked about earlier. Right? You're not really a random sample. So the very first one I'll put up here is random sample. This is the ideal. This is what you try, whatever method you come up with. You're trying to make sure it's random. But we got to define what that is, because there's a lot of people on YouTube or whatever that have no real idea what random means. They see it as a word that they can say that makes people watch their shit. Right? So what really is random? What's the definition of a random sample? Or
Without intent.
I like it. So you don't go in with the presupposed, I want to keep these people out because I don't like their viewpoint or something, right? There's no conscious bias. I like that. So without...
Subconscious bias.
Well, that's the hard part. Right? So that's why I said very careful with conscious bias. Subconscious, you never know what that thing's doing. So truly random sample, what would that mean? What was the problem with you guys? How did I phrase it? I started to investigate why you guys weren't a good sample. How did I start to do that? I talked about...
You signed up for the class. You were signed up for the
Yes,
class.
but so I was talking about the groups that
Are not here. Are not here.
had no chance.
Of being...
See, that's the key. To be truly random sample, that means that everything in your population had to have a chance to be included in the sample. See how slowly I said that? So that's pretty much the definition. Every element, let me try to push it here a little bit and use a real math word. Every element in your population has an equal chance to be in your sample. In the sample. So if I try to improve my sample, I said, okay, I'll go around to all the classrooms where there's a class at the same time as ours, and I'll take people from each of those classrooms.
Yeah.
There. What's your problem with that? Leave me alone.
That class is online.
Yeah, I'm leaving out the classes that start at different times. Like we said, the group specifically that can't take classes before 5 or something. And specifically leaving out that entire group of people. They didn't have a chance to get in the sample at all. You guys heard? Or they have to have an equal chance. Somebody could say, well, maybe they're visiting that class, or maybe... No, then they don't have an equal chance because they're not there every day as the other people are. Do you see why that equal part's in there too?
What if you randomly chose what time to sample the classes?
Ooh, I like it. See, now we're starting to get to a... so in that case, are there any classes meeting that wouldn't be able to be included in the sample? There's kind of a class...
Different days.
Saturday classes?
Tuesdays.
All right, so what if you did all 7 days, all the times, and you were picking every class that starts at all random times, not leaving out any days?
What about love classes?
Ah, there we go. I love it. You I don't know if you guys know this, but you are in what is termed an on-ground class. Because the other one is the web class, and the online class. And on-ground always sounded like there's a class somewhere where everybody's freaking floating. But that'd be neat. And then push somebody else. Hey, man. I want to be in that class. So yes. It is difficult to achieve this goal, and it should be difficult to achieve this goal because you have to really take into account a lot of different things. So a big part of the first piece of reporting results of a statistical experiment will be how did you decide to choose the people that you're going to use in the sample, or choose the things you're going to use in the sample. Because if I don't agree with your methods, I'm not going to read the rest of it because to me it's going to be bullshit. I'm like, I can't trust your results, right? So just because I put random first doesn't mean these other ones can't be random. It's just that they have a certain method they use to try to make sure they're random, or there's a certain method they use just because that's the way to pick people. So truly random would be if I took every Grossmont student's name, put it in this giant hat, and then just reached in, or had somebody jump in, because that would be a big freaking hat. We have about 19,000 or so students at Grossmont, Yeah, that's why it's hard to park. So the second level, these aren't levels. The second, another way to do this would be, let me do these two together. There's a way called stratified, and there's a way called cluster. These two are really easy to mix up because they start the same way. They both say split your population up into groups. So just for an example, for example, you could have, I'm going to pick 7 people from every zip code. So it's already kind of naturally broken up into groups. Zip codes are the groups. Or for this example, just to make it easy to draw, let's say there's 3 classrooms. So let's say right now, let's say there's a very small school. And they only have 3 classes, right? And this is like elementary school. There's just 3 classes, 3 teachers, right? And I want to take a sample from those students. So both of these would have the same starting point. They're broken up into groups. Now stratified would say pick some from each. Some from each. Starts with an S, which is nice, right? Some from each. So I take some people from this one, some people from this one, some people from this one. I take some people, and that would be my sample. Some from each. So where you would use stratified for sure would be, for example, I don't know why this always comes to mind, like at a high school, if you wanted to get the opinions of students on something, you probably want to make sure you include freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors. If you just randomly pick and you end up with no freshmen, then the freshmen are going to be like, hey now. They haven't, no. Sorry. Sorry. Cluster would be a different kind of situation that would require a cluster, but this is the way cluster works. It's all from some. It doesn't start with a C, but this one's S. Right. And that means that you randomly pick 2. So this one and this one. Sure. And you take everybody from those 2. Now, if people say to me, Jeff, that's not random. What the hell? These people didn't have a chance. Yeah, they did. Because I randomly selected which classroom to take everybody from. Did they have a chance at the beginning? Yes. So the mistake people make is, right now, they don't have a chance. But that's not what the point of this is. At the beginning, before I do anything, does everybody have a chance? Yeah. If I'm randomly selecting, so this would be like for you guys, if I randomly select rows, and I count everybody standing as a row or something, because you're not really in a row. And then I randomly select a couple rows, and then take everybody from those 2 rows, that's cluster. If I took a few people from each row, that's stratified, right? They're both random. If done correctly, they're both random, because everybody had a chance at the beginning.
Will one group in stratified ever be bigger than another?
Oh, good point. So sometimes in stratified, you want to do what's called proportional sampling. So like if I had 5,000 freshmen and 300 sophomores, to kind of get the voice weighted the way it should be, I should take, maybe if I take 50 freshmen, I'm going to take, I forget what I just said, 3 sophomores. Do you see? So it's proportional to how many were there to begin with. Do you have to do it that way? No. Does it make sense that it's more fair? Yeah. It's sort of like the 2 branches of the legislative. Oh shit. What are the 2 branches? Two things in the legislative branch.
Senate and House.
Yes. When you think about how the representation is done, right? One of them is proportional to the population of the state, and the other one is just 2 from every state, right? So that's the 2 different ways we could do, and that's kind of related to this in a way. Really, it's kind of weird. Where am I at? So this is my sample here. So cluster, I always think about like the cluster cereal. So when you put your spoon in, you randomly get these little clusters, and you're going to eat all of them. And then these guys, you don't do anything with them. You guys? I don't know. It might just be me. It looks like it's just me. Whatever way this makes sense, I don't know what to tell you. Stratified, strata. If you like geology, you can kind of make something there. I don't know. I'm trying to help you remember this. No? All right. Where am I at? Oh, the last one. I'm sorry. The last two. And then we'll head out a little early today. There's one called systematic. And what does it seem like it would reference? Systematic. There's a system to it. So I always think about an assembly line, and I want to randomly sample parts to see if the machine is working. So I let it run, and then I randomly start somewhere, and then I pick every fifth one. Why would an assembly line maybe not be the best place to do systematic? Even though it's kind of like the easiest way to describe it. I always think about there could be a machine that does ka-chunk, chink, ka-chunk, chink, ka-chunk, chink, and this chink is broken. So like if you take every, whatever, I can't remember how many things I did, every third one is the broken one. You're like, everything sucks. No, it's just you happen to pick, or if you pick against that, you never see it, and you think everything's great. So that kind of thing where there's a cyclic thing that might be happening, you don't want to do systematic because you might happen to just miss it or only get the bad ones. So it's not a great way to sample. But that does give you, like if I went out and took air temperature every 10 minutes, systematic. There's a system to it every 10 minutes. If I picked up grass every 30 feet to test soil, whatever, obviously I'm not a soil expert, but that would be systematic. There's a system to how I'm collecting it. If I picked every third student, and then people say, well, then the second student doesn't have a chance. But to make it truly systematic, the first one is picked randomly. So I randomly pick a student, and then I pick every two after. Right? Then everybody had a chance. Do you understand? So still, always going towards this goal. It's a systematic, I'm not going to even say it, there's a system to it. You've got to love that one. And then the last one is the one that sucks. Convenience sample. And we already talked about that. You guys were convenient. Or if I hold every fourth student that went by my office, that's still convenience. Because I'm not making any attempt to make sure that it's representative of Grossmont students. Right? Maybe. Oh man, today was like, holy crap. We did a lot. So if you feel a little drained, you probably should. So again, just get into it. You don't need a book. If you're waiting for your book, I don't know who you are. Get on there, get the PDF, start doing the homework, come with questions. Oh, it's there's no attempt to make sure it's representative sample. It's there's a system to it. There's every 10th or every third or whatever.
No attempt.
Let's see. There wasn't anybody that I missed when I was called, or nobody came in after I called. Roll. Okay. I'm my only crasher. It must be 54 people that fit in there. It's quite a small class. I think I'm missing some seats up here. Yeah, I think somebody stole it.
Cool color.
Thank you.
All right, let me see.